At 6:42 a.m., my phone buzzed on the kitchen table. Patricia texted, "Plans changed. You're not coming on the cruise. Jennifer wants her real dad." By noon, my marriage was over. I'm Paul Henderson, 58 years old, and I'd just learned that 16 years of being a stepfather meant nothing when blood came calling. I stood there looking at that screen like it might change its mind. The coffee maker was making that angry noise it makes when there's barely anything left in the pot. The radio was going on about corn prices or something. Outside, the wind was pushing leaves around the driveway like they couldn't wait to get away from what was happening. I read the message again. Same words. Patricia sent it like she was telling me dinner would be late. I didn't text back. I just set the phone down face first and watched it buzz again. Another message trying to get through. I left it alone. I sat down in my usual chair at the kitchen table, the one that faces the window. Patricia used to call it your throne when she was being cute. The coffee got cold. I didn't care. 16 years ago, I moved into this house on East Locust Street in Davenport with my truck, my tools, and a promise I meant to keep. Jennifer was 10 then, all elbows and knees, big front teeth she hadn't grown into yet. Her real dad, Daniel Morrison, was about as reliable as Iowa weather in April. Patricia told me that the first night we sat on the back porch with a couple of beers. "It's just us now," she said. "We're a real family." Real family. She said that a lot over the years. When I paid for Jennifer's braces, Patricia would pat my arm and say, "That's what dads do." When I helped Jennifer buy her Honda after she got into Iowa State, Patricia said, "She's so lucky to have you." When I set up automatic payments for this Mississippi River cruise she'd been hinting about for months, Patricia kissed my cheek and said, "We earned this." But her text didn't say "we." It said her real dad. The phone buzzed again. I got up and walked to the sink. I dumped out the coffee without tasting it. The cup made a sharp sound when it hit the counter, like it was mad about being wasted. I rinsed it anyway, taking my time. When I finally picked up the phone, there was a voicemail waiting. Patricia's voice, and I knew what it would sound like before I pressed play. Tight, rushed, already irritated. "Paul, don't make this complicated," she said. "Jennifer just asked for this, okay? You get it, right? Call me when you're not upset anymore. Not upset anymore." I leaned against the counter and closed my eyes. I could see Jennifer at 10, sitting at this same table with her homework spread out, crying because Daniel had bailed on her again. I remembered sitting down next to her and saying, "All right, kiddo, let's figure this out together." I remembered how she smiled then, like someone had just told her everything would be okay. I'd been retired from construction for 2 years now. Good union pension, decent benefits, thought I'd earned some peace. Thought I'd earned some respect, too. Guess I was wrong about that. In Vietnam, we had a saying, "When the mission changes, you adapt or you die." I thought that war taught me everything I needed to know about betrayal. Turns out there was still some lessons coming. I played the voicemail again. Patricia sounded like she'd practiced it. I didn't call her back. By 9:30, I was supposed to be at Henderson Construction, my brother's company where I did some consulting work a couple days a week. Something to keep busy, make a few extra bucks. I put on my jacket, grabbed my keys, and stopped in the hallway where all the family pictures hung. There was one from when we refinanced the house, Patricia and Jennifer sitting on the couch, me standing behind them with my hand on the cushion like I wasn't sure I belonged in the picture. I'd never noticed that before. At the office, I went through the motions, talked about estimates, looked at blueprints, nodded when people asked me questions. My phone kept buzzing. I ignored it. Steve, my brother, asked if I was feeling okay. I told him I had some family stuff to handle. On the drive home, I stopped at a gas station and just sat in my truck with the engine running. I let the phone ring until it quit. The quiet afterward felt heavy, like someone had just slammed a door. I thought about calling George Palmer from the VFW. George was Navy, served 2 tours, always had good advice. But I wasn't ready to talk about it yet. The house felt too quiet when I got back. Patricia had left early to catch her flight, so everything was neat and empty, like a hotel room. I sat back down at the kitchen table and looked at the place settings she'd left out. I could picture them on that cruise ship right now, Patricia and Jennifer laughing in the wind, Daniel standing there like he'd earned the right to be part of it. My phone buzzed one more time. A text from Jennifer. "Please respect our space." I stared at those words until they got blurry. Then I set the phone down gently, turned it face down, and pushed it away from me like you do with something too hot to touch. That's when I knew this wasn't about a cruise anymore. That night I didn't sleep much. Not the kind where you toss and turn, just the kind where you lie there and your brain won't shut up. Every time I started to drift off, those words came back. Her real family. It kept bugging me like a splinter you can't quite get to. At 5:30, I gave up trying. I got dressed, made fresh coffee, and drank it standing up in the kitchen. The house felt different in the early light, like it was waiting for me to make a decision. I checked my phone out of habit. 3 missed calls from Patricia, 2 voicemails. I didn't listen. Instead of going to work that morning, I drove straight to the VFW post on West 3rd Street. George Palmer was already there, sitting at his usual spot at the bar, even though it was barely 10 a.m. He had his Navy cap on, the one so worn it looked like felt. "You look like hell," George said when I sat down next to him. "Feel worse," I said. George ordered me a coffee and waited. That's what I always liked about him. No rush, no pressure. Just there if you needed him. I told him about the text, about the cruise, about Jennifer calling Daniel her real dad. George listened and nodded once when I finished. "How long you been married?" he asked. 16 years. Kids? Stepdaughter. Raised her since she was 10. George took a sip of his coffee. "In the service, you know when someone's using you for your gear, and when they actually got your back." "Yeah. Sounds like you've been carrying someone else's pack for a long time." That hit home. In construction, we had guys who'd let you do the heavy lifting while they stood around. In the Army, we called them deadweight. I'd never thought about my family that way before. "What would you do?" I asked. George shrugged. "Me? I'd stop carrying the pack. Let them figure out how heavy it really was." I drove home, thinking about what he said. When I got there, I went straight to the spare room where I kept all the paperwork. Patricia always said I was too organized, kept too many receipts. Maybe that was about to pay off. I pulled out the filing cabinet and started going through everything. Jennifer's braces, $3,200, all in my name. Her car repairs when that Honda needed a new transmission, $2,800. College fund deposits, $200 a month for 8 years straight. I used to skip lunch to make those payments. Then I found something I'd forgotten about. Bank statements from the last 2 years. Small transfers, $300 here, $500 there. Patricia moving money from our joint account into something called Henderson Family Trust, with Jennifer's name on it. Not huge amounts, but steady. Hidden. I sat back in my chair and laughed once, sharp and surprised. Not because it was funny, but because it was so clear. They'd been planning this for a while. My phone rang. Patricia's name on the screen. This time I answered. "Paul?" She sounded breathless. "What's going on? You haven't called me back?" "I've been busy," I said. "Busy with what?" "Look, I know you're upset about the cruise, but Jennifer just asked, how long?" I cut her off. "How long what? How long have you been moving money into that trust account?" Silence. Then, That's for Jennifer's future. I didn't think you'd mind. You didn't think I'd mind? Or you didn't think I'd notice? More silence. Paul, you're making this into something it's not. Am I? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you've been planning to cut me out for a while now. That's not… She started, then stopped. Look, we can talk about this when I get back. Don't do anything stupid while I'm gone. Like what? I don't know. Just don't. She hung up. I sat there looking at the papers spread across the desk. In Vietnam, when intel came in that changed everything, you had two choices: sit there and take fire, or move to better ground. I'd always been good at reading situations. The next morning, I called the number on a business card I'd kept in my wallet. Nancy Williams, the realtor who'd sold the Kowalski place down the street last year. Nice lady, no nonsense. I'm thinking about selling, I told her. Your house on Locust? She asked. That's right. Mind if I ask why? Family situation changed, I said. I need to make some adjustments. She didn't push. I can come by this afternoon if you want. Take a look, give you an idea of what we're working with. Your wife know about this? Nancy asked when she walked through the house later that day. She's traveling, I said. I handle the financial decisions. Nancy nodded and kept taking notes. Market's pretty good right now. House this size, this neighborhood, you shouldn't have trouble finding a buyer. How fast could we move? If you price it right, 30 days, maybe less. That evening, I called the cruise line. The woman who answered was polite, but didn't seem surprised when I told her I needed to cancel. Reason for the cancellation? She asked. Change in passenger status, I said. She processed it without asking questions. Got my refund processed the same day. Then I called my attorney, Jim Walsh. We'd used him for the house paperwork years ago. Good guy, straight shooter. Jim, I need to ask you something about property law. Shoot. If a house is titled in only one person's name, can they sell it without the spouse's permission? Whose name is on the deed? Mine. Just mine. Then yes, you can sell. Your wife would have a claim to half the proceeds in a divorce, but she can't stop the sale. I hung up and sat there in the quiet house. Everything felt different now. Not sad exactly, just clear. The offer came faster than I expected. A young couple, Anthony and Lisa Rodriguez, stationed at Rock Island Arsenal. She was pregnant with their first kid, due in the fall. They had a VA loan already approved and needed to move quick. Nancy called me on a Thursday morning. They're offering asking price, she said. But they need to close in 3 weeks. What's the catch? No catch. They just got orders and need housing fast. You okay with that timeline? I thought about Patricia and Jennifer floating around on that river, probably toasting Daniel like he was some kind of hero. Yeah, I'm okay with it. One more thing, Nancy said. They asked if you could leave the dining room table. They don't have furniture yet. I looked at the table where I'd eaten breakfast for 16 years, where I'd helped Jennifer with homework, where Patricia used to plan our weekends. They can have it. The paperwork moved fast after that. In the military, I'd learned that once you make a decision, you execute it clean and simple. No second guessing, no looking back. I signed where they told me to sign, transferred what they told me to transfer. Steve at Henderson Construction asked if I wanted to pick up more hours. I told him I'd be traveling for a while. George Palmer offered to let me store some stuff at his place if I needed to. Good people. Real friends don't ask too many questions when you need help. I packed my truck with the basics: clothes, tools, important papers. Everything else stayed exactly where it was. Let Patricia explain to Daniel why the furniture came with the house. 3 days before closing, I drove out to Riverside Park and sat by the Mississippi. Same river they were cruising on, just 300 miles upstream. The water was low and muddy, moving slow but steady towards the Gulf. I'd always liked watching water move. It knows where it's going. My phone rang. Jennifer's number. Dad, Paul? Her voice sounded small. Mom's been trying to reach you. I know. Are you okay? She's worried you're doing something crazy. I almost laughed. Depends on what you call crazy. What's that supposed to mean? Nothing you need to worry about, kiddo. You having a good time on your cruise? Silence. Then, yeah. It's nice. Daniel's been telling us about his job in Chicago. He's doing well. That's good. He owes you that much. Paul. She paused. When we get back, can we talk? I think there's some stuff I need to understand. I'd like that, I said, and meant it. They came back on a Tuesday. I know because Nancy texted me at 3:18 p.m. They're there now. I was sitting in a diner outside Muscatine, drinking coffee that tasted like it had given up trying to be coffee. I set the phone down and waited. Didn't take long. Patricia called first. I let it ring. 5 minutes later, Jennifer called. I let that one ring too. Then Daniel. Didn't even know he had my number. That one I definitely let ring. Nancy filled me in later. Said Patricia pulled up to the house laughing, suitcase still in the back of the car. Jennifer behind her with her phone out, probably posting pictures. Daniel trailing along like he belonged there. Patricia tried her key. When it didn't work, she rattled the knob like the lock was broken. Then she saw the sold sign Nancy had put up that morning. Anthony Rodriguez answered the door, chain still on, polite but confused. He told them he and his wife had just moved in that morning. Patricia started laughing, like it was some kind of mistake. Then she started yelling. The police showed up, 2 officers, one of them a guy I knew from church. They looked at the paperwork, checked the deed, asked who owned the property. Patricia couldn't answer that question. She never could. They filed papers a week later. Not divorce yet, just demanding I reverse the sale. Patricia hired some lawyer who thought he could scare me. Big mistake. Scott County Courthouse on a Friday morning. I wore my good jacket, the one I used to wear to Jennifer's school events. Carried a manila envelope full of 16 years' worth of receipts and records. Patricia showed up 10 minutes late, clicking across the floor in heels that were too loud for the room. Jennifer walked behind her, eyes down, phone in her hand like a shield. Daniel brought up the rear, hands in his pockets, grinning like this was all, some big joke. The mediator was a woman about my age, reading glasses on a chain. She looked tired before we even started. Let's keep this simple, she said. We're here to discuss the property sale. Patricia jumped right in. He sold our house without telling us, while we were on vacation. My daughter was humiliated. The mediator looked at me. Mr. Henderson? I set the envelope on the table. It made a solid sound when it hit. I sold my house, I said. I stopped paying for a life I wasn't welcome in. I opened the envelope. Bank statements, receipts, deed records, auto-pay confirmations, all organized by date, highlighted where it mattered. The house was titled, "In my name only," I said. Purchased with my down payment, my credit, my signature on the mortgage. Patricia scoffed. Money isn't everything. You said it was when it was mine, I replied. The mediator adjusted her glasses and read through everything. She took her time. I appreciated that. The property was legally Mr. Henderson's, too. Sell, she said finally. Daniel leaned forward. I'm her father. Jennifer deserved that house. I looked at him for the first time since walking in. Same smirk he'd had when he borrowed money from Patricia and never paid it back. You mean like she deserved child support? I asked. Insurance coverage? Help with college? The room got quiet. I've got the receipts for that too, I said, reaching into the envelope. Insurance gaps when you disappeared for 3 years. School expenses, emergency room visits when Jennifer broke her wrist and you were nowhere to find. Daniel's smile disappeared. That's ancient history. Is it? I pulled out a folder. Union records show I added Jennifer to my health insurance in 2008. Kept her on it until she aged out. Dental, vision, the works. Cost me an extra $200 a month for 16 years. Jennifer looked up for the first time since we'd walked in. Her face was pale. I also have records of every tuition payment, every car repair, every time you promised to help and didn't show up. I spread the papers across the table. Want to see them? The mediator cleared her throat. This isn't about who paid for what, she said. Legally speaking, Mr. Henderson acted within his rights when he sold the property. Patricia's face got red. So he just gets away with it? I looked at her straight. I didn't get away with anything. I got out. Outside the courthouse, the sun was bright and warm. I stood on the steps for a minute, just breathing. Jennifer came out last, stopped a few feet away from me. I didn't know, she said quietly. About all the money, the insurance, everything. I wasn't keeping score, I said. I was just trying to be your dad. She nodded, tears in her eyes. I'm sorry about what I said. About Daniel being my real dad. I wanted to tell her it was okay, that it didn't matter. But it did matter, and we both knew it. You want to grab some coffee? I asked. Talk about this like adults? We went to a diner downtown, sat in a booth by the window. Jennifer ordered. Coffee? I got mine black like always. Where are you living now? She asked. Got a little place by the river. Nothing fancy, but it's quiet. Are you okay? I mean, really okay? I thought about that. Yeah, I think I am. First time in a long time. She stirred sugar into her coffee, not looking at me. Daniel left yesterday. Said he had to get back to Chicago for work. I'm sorry. Are you? Really? I considered lying, decided against it. No, I'm not sorry he's gone. But I'm sorry you're hurt. We talked for an hour. Not about the cruise or the house or the money, about her job, her friends, her plans, normal dad and daughter stuff. When we got ready to leave, she hugged me. A real hug. Not the kind you give someone because you're supposed to. Can I visit you sometime, at your new place? I'd like that, I said. The river was low that fall. I learned that sitting on my small deck most mornings with coffee and the newspaper, watching the Mississippi wake up slow and steady. No rush, no pressure. Just moving along like it had been doing for thousands of years before I got there. George Palmer stopped by once a week or so. We'd sit on the deck and watch the water, talk about nothing important. Good company doesn't need a lot of words. You regret it? He asked me one morning in October. Which part? Selling the house. Walking away. I thought about it while I watched a barge push downstream. No. I regret waiting so long to do it. Jennifer came by that same week, brought groceries, helped me set up a better TV antenna. We didn't talk much about Patricia or Daniel. Didn't need to. You seem different, she said as she was getting ready to leave. How so? Lighter, I guess. Like you're not carrying something heavy anymore. That was it exactly. For 16 years, I'd been carrying weight that wasn't mine to carry. Patricia's resentment, Daniel's failure, Jennifer's confusion about where she belonged. I'd thought that's what fathers do. Carry the load so everyone else can walk easier. Turns out, there's a difference between helping someone and letting them use you as a pack mule. Winter came early that year. The river went gray-green, chunks of ice floating past like puzzle pieces that didn't fit together anymore. I bought a thicker coat, learned to cook for one without burning everything. I slept better than I had in years. Some nights I thought about the old house, about Patricia trying to explain to her friends why her husband sold their home while she was on vacation. About Daniel having to find his own place to crash when he came through town. About the Rodriguez family making new memories at that dining room table. I didn't feel guilty about any of it. What I learned, what took me 16 years and one text message to figure out, is this. Respect isn't something you earn once and keep forever. It's something you have to protect every single day. And sometimes protecting it means walking away from people who never valued it in the first place. If you've ever been quietly erased from your own life, told you belong right up until the moment you don't, remember this: your dignity is worth more than their convenience. Sometimes the strongest thing a man can do isn't staying to fight a battle he can't win. Sometimes it's knowing when he's worth more than the war they're asking him to lose. The river keeps flowing. And so do I. A man's true worth isn't measured by how much he can give, but by how well he knows when to stop giving to people who'll never appreciate it. Sometimes the best thing you can teach someone about your value is to let them live without it.